Welcome to MMAPlay365, I'm Newsome, and I'm here to give you a Blaydes AI recap from our UFC prediction software from last weekend's event at UFC Vegas 71. We did end up only with a total of 10 fights. From a straight pick prediction accuracy, we did hit 5 out of those 10. There was a few really interesting fights though in there. So although we're at 50% for the straight pick prediction accuracy, you do have to remember, and I say this time and time again, Blaydes AI is a betting tool, so you can't just define the quality of the UFC prediction software that we're running here at MMAPlay365 solely on straight pick prediction accuracy. Otherwise, it would be a relatively worthless tool. You know, you've got to dig into the numbers, and this is the reason why I provide these recaps, so you can see where there was value found. You can see where, you know, the strengths of Blaydes AI and really finding those right numbers, comparing them to the betting lines really work. And actually, just quickly as well, we did receive a comment from somebody saying, look, they'd gone into the Blaydes AI percentage predictions. They weren't sure how those percentages worked in regards to matching it up with the bookies' odds. And I did drop a comment back to that person and just, you know, give an explanation of how it works. But basically, there is a tool on the betmma.tips website. There's an odds conversions tool, and in there you can put in 60%, for example, and that would tell you that at 60% the odds implied is minus 150. So when you are looking at the Blaydes AI percentages during fight week, you can work with that odds conversion tool on betmma.tips and just find that value from where Blaydes AI is saying that the odds should be at, and then looking at the bookies and seeing what odds the bookies have got, and if there's value on it and you want to bet on it, then that's great. That's a really, you know, valuable way of using Blaydes AI as a betting tool. So like I said, if you are struggling between the percentages and how they match up against the bookies with the implied odds, the probability, then like I said, use that odds conversion tool at betmma.tips, and that'll allow you to put a percentage in, and that'll tell you what the odds should be at. But now diving into the value section for UFC Vegas 71, we start with Mohammed Usman versus Junior Tafa, which was a bit of a talking point during fight week because of the line movement on Mohammed Usman. So from Blaydes AI's perspective, Mohammed Usman was actually not favoured to win the fight, but you look at the percentage, it was 49.39%. So, you know, we're talking technicalities here. Blaydes AI did technically favour Junior Tafa, but we're talking by like a 0.1%. So, yeah, Usman, 49.39%. The odds implied on that is plus 102. So Blaydes AI was saying, look, Usman should be a very, very, very slight plus money underdog. In the early moments of last week, you'd have got plus 200, then plus 195, then plus 188. I saw then plus 180, then plus 175, and it went all the way down to a minus 110 pick'em. So at some point during that fight week, you'd have been able to get a lot of value on Mohammed Usman. I nearly said Kamaru then. You'd have got a lot of value on Mohammed Usman to win that fight, but obviously once it hit the minus 110 pick'em, the value's then not there. But regardless, at 49.39%, if you got plus 200 or plus 195 or even anything from, you know, plus 125, you're getting a lot of value there. And yeah, that's the first value spot from UFC Vegas 71. The next value spot, the last actual value spot we're going to be talking about from the perspective of Blaydes AI picking incorrectly but still having value within the percentage, is Christos Giagos versus Ricky Glenn. So Giagos to win, Blaydes AI had at 44%. Now Giagos odds implied at 44%. Blaydes AI is saying Giagos should have been a plus 127 underdog. So it is picking against Giagos. It is saying that Giagos is a rightful underdog, but Giagos early in fight week was plus 180, so there's a ton of value there from plus 127 where Blaydes AI is saying Giagos should be at, and then the bookies are offering you plus 180. It went down to around plus 140. I think it closed around that sort of line. So even at plus 140, there's value there on Christos Giagos. Even if you did want to wait a little bit to see where the line moved and, you know, it didn't go your way, there was still some value there on Christos Giagos, who did win the fight in the first round as well. You know, made it relatively simple and a good underdog cash. So if you are somebody that's using Blaydes AI as a betting tool, looking for these value spots, and Christos Giagos was another good value spot there for sure. And now we go into the solid winners. So technically, this first one that I'm going to be talking about is a solid winner. It hit across the board, the win, the inside the distance, the method of victory plus round as well. However, there was no value on any of it. And this is the difference. So there might be some people saying, oh yeah, well, you're just making Blaydes, who picked a losing fighter, sound pretty by saying that there's value in it from a betting perspective. That's not me just trying to sugarcoat a loss from Blaydes' perspective. That's me just showing you that there's value. But on the flip side here, I'm now telling you about a solid winner that's hit across the board, that there's no value in it. So I'll explain what I mean. Look, we've got Montel Jackson versus Rani Yahya. Montel Jackson to win was 71% predicted correctly by Blaydes. Perfect. High number, very confident. But at 71%, odds implied is minus 245. On the money line of Montel Jackson, you'd have got minus 500 to minus 650. There's no value there, although it's a correct prediction. Montel Jackson to win inside the distance. That's where you add your knockout TKO, KO TKO with your submission percentage. Add those two together, and then you get your inside the distance. The bookies will throw you in a DQ as well, which hardly ever happens. But Montel Jackson to win inside the distance is 38%, according to Blaydes. Odds implied, plus 163. The odds at the bookies, minus 125 to minus 175. There's no value there. So even though Montel Jackson did win the fight and did finish the fight, there's no value in that money line or inside the distance. So then we move on to the method of victory, specifically KO TKO. Montel Jackson to win via KO TKO is 32%. Odds implied at 32% is plus 213. You'd have got plus 100 to plus 150. So you are in the plus money numbers now at the bookies, but there's still no value compared to Blaydes' percentage. Now you move on to the next one. Montel Jackson, KO TKO, specifically in round 1, 28%. Odds implied, plus 257. Odds at the bookies, plus 175 to plus 195. So we're getting a little bit closer here, but still, from Blaydes' percentage to the bookies' odds, there's no value. So how this then works with the two value spots that I spoke about above. Look, Montel Jackson won this fight and knocked his opponent out in round 1. Looked solid, looked convincing. Yeah. But actually, from a betting perspective, the better bets would have been the ones that Blaydes didn't pick correctly. So the Mohammed Usman, who Blaydes slightly favoured his opponent, Tafa, and Christos Giagos, who, again, Blaydes picked against and slightly favoured his opponent, Ricky Glenn. When you're actually diving into the numbers and comparing it to the odds, Mohammed Usman and Christos Giagos were better bets than Montel Jackson, even though Montel Jackson was picked at 71% by Blaydes and hit everything across the board. The money line, inside the distance, the method of victory plus round. So this is just further proof that, again, you just need to look into the numbers and find where the value is, because sometimes the value is actually in the fighter that Blaydes is picking to lose and not the fighter that Blaydes is confidently picking to win. That's not always the case, but every week it just needs to be looked at if you are using Blaydes as a betting tool, which in my opinion it is a very solid betting tool. But we're moving on in the solid winners section, and the next three are actually really solid winners. And Blaydes did a phenomenal job this week, especially on the last two that we're going to talk about. But right now we're going to focus in on Jeremiah Wells versus Matthew Semelsberger. Wells to win was at 66% predicted by Blaydes. I also bet Jeremiah Wells as well. I bet him last time out against Court McGee when it seemed like the public were completely against him. I love Jeremiah Wells. I think he's a problem. He's a fighter with power, with good wrestling, good grappling. So he's a fighter that is going to be very, very difficult to beat. And when you're getting him at a good line, then yeah, I'm happy. But listen, Blaydes would have given you a really good value spot here as well as a solid prediction. So Wells to win was 66% by Blaydes. Now at 66%, Blaydes is basically saying that Jeremiah Wells should have been a minus 194 favourite. So a near 2-1 favourite Blaydes was saying that Wells should have been at. Wells opened at around minus 150. All the money came in on Semelsberger. Then it settled at around a pick'em. It did drop to Wells being at around minus 105, I believe. But even at that opener at minus 150, it's still got a ton of value there, with Blaydes saying it should be closer to a 2-1 favourite. But then after all the money's come in, it's just adding more and more value. And look, Wells did get hurt in 2 of the rounds. I personally think that due to judge consistency, Wells probably should have lost those rounds, but I've never liked that rule anyway of a knockdown being an auto round winner, because that fight was a perfect example of it. Wells, although he was knocked down, he got straight back into his wrestling and controlled those 2 rounds he was knocked down in, and then controlled the 3rd round as well. So Wells was the better fighter, 66%, minus 194 odds implied, and you're getting anywhere from minus 150 down to minus 105. A ton of value with a solid win from Jeremiah Wells, and yeah, really good job from Blaydes AI on that one. The next fight to talk about in the solid winners section was in the co-main event, where Blaydes AI liked the underdog, and so did I. I also bet Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva versus Brad Tavares. Blaydes AI had Silva to win at 54%, so it's not a massive percentage, but at 54%, Blaydes AI is saying that Bruno Silva should be a very, very slight minus 117 favourite. You could have got Bruno Silva from anywhere from plus 155 down to plus 125. I took plus 140. That was the best line that was available to me. So I was smack in the middle of that odds range. But even at the lowest odds at around plus 125, a ton of value with a plus symbol next to that odds, where Blaydes AI is saying that there should be a minus symbol and Silva should be the slight favourite, but you're getting him at dog money, and Silva won. So yeah, solid from the moneyline perspective. We go even further though. Silva to win inside the distance. Now again, this is KO TKO plus submission, percentages added together, and then the bookies will throw you in a DQ. Inside the distance, Blaydes AI is saying that Silva should have been 46.90%. Now there is a reason why I've added the 0.90%. Normally I just round up and down accordingly, but at 46.90%, the odds implied there is plus 113. You'd have got plus 200 for Silva to win inside the distance at the bookies. So look, everyone bets differently. Personally, if I'm getting dog money, and I normally just bet the money line anyway, that's just the way I bet. Everyone's different. But as an absolute rule of thumb for me, if I'm getting plus money on the money line, I'm not going to start playing around with, methods of victory and props and things like that. So for Silva to win inside the distance, though, technically, there's more value to bet him inside the distance than there is on the money line, because at 46.90%, there's not a lot of difference between that and the money line, and you're getting a much better number. You're getting a 2-to-1 ticket on Silva to win inside the distance. But now we go one step further. Silva to win by KO TKO specifically is 46.61%. So that's compared to the inside the distance of 46.90%. What that's basically telling you is there was a very slight 0 point something percentage for Bruno Silva to win by submission, but it was so small, it's almost insignificant. So if you are looking outside of the money line, then you are going to prefer to bet Silva KO TKO specifically rather than just inside the distance, because at 46.61%, the odds implied is plus 115. The odds you'd have got at the bookies is anywhere from plus 225 to plus 255. So when you compare the plus 113 odds implied for inside the distance to the plus 115 odds for KO TKO, but then you're getting a much greater betting line on the exact method of victory, that then becomes the better bet than inside the distance. And this is where I'm sort of sat with like the whole money line thing, because I bet Bruno Silva's money line, but it's like, where do I draw the line? Do I go inside the distance? Okay, well now KO TKO is looking better. For me, I just took the outright plus money, crazier things have happened type of bet. But then we go one step further. So this is a gem. We've got Silva, KO TKO specifically in round 1, 35% according to Blaydes AI. The odds implied at 35% is plus 186. So now you're getting closer to the plus 200, which we actually got the plus 200 line at the bookies on just inside the distance. Now we're still under that, and we're looking at KO TKO specifically in round 1. So this is how sure Blaydes AI was of Bruno Silva. But for a plus 186 odds implied at 35% at the bookies, you're getting a plus 550 ticket for Silva to win specifically in round 1. Obviously, the risks that come with that are greater. You've got 5 minutes to work with rather than 15. But there's still value across the board. There's value on Silva's money line. There's value on Silva to win inside the distance. There's value on Silva to win specifically by KO TKO. There's value on Silva to win by KO TKO specifically in round 1. And guess what? Bruno Silva was an underdog. So an absolute gem from Blaydes AI on an underdog. And speaking of underdogs that go all 4 levels, this one's going to throw up a few curveballs though, so you're going to have to bear with me and I'll explain why the odds are the way they are. So now we're on the main event, Sergei Pavlovich versus Curtis Blaydes. Blaydes loved Sergei Pavlovich to win at 58%. At 58% odds implied, Blaydes is saying that Pavlovich should be a slight to moderate favourite at minus 138, but you'd have got Pavlovich from anywhere from plus 160 down to plus 125. For your best line, your worst line, it's still closed at plus money, and basically I was saying that Pavlovich should have been a favourite. So again, there's a lot of value there on Sergei Pavlovich. Now we go one step further, Pavlovich to win inside the distance. So once again, you add your KO, TKO and your submission percentages together and you get 50.89%. Again, there's a reason why I've gone for the 0.89. I'll explain soon. But at 50.89%, odds implied is minus 104. You're actually getting Pavlovich to win inside the distance, from anywhere from plus 145 to plus 165. Now, this is within the range of Pavlovich to just win outright. And the reason being is Pavlovich wins by knockout pretty much more often than not. It's not a submission and it's not a decision. So the bookies can't really go crazy and start giving you Pavlovich to win inside the distance at plus 200 because absolutely nobody is going to take the money line at plus 160 and that's the highest money line at plus 160. No one's going to take that if it's offering inside the distance at plus 200. They're just not, because if Pavlovich is going to win this fight, it's going to win by KO. And actually, this is one of the very rare scenarios that if I'd have bet Pavlovich, I wouldn't have bet him outright. I'd have took him inside the distance. I'd have rather have had plus 165 than plus 160. Even though there's not a lot of difference in the betting line and anything can happen, the likelihood of Pavlovich winning a decision was so slim that it was almost unlikely. I won't say impossible, but unlikely. It was very unlikely. Now, we go one step further. Pavlovich to win by KO TKO specifically, that's 50.67%. So now you're thinking, well, 50.67% compared to 50.89%. It's the same scenario we just had with Bruno Silva. Pavlovich to win by submission was an insignificant 0.something percentage number to the point of it's not going to happen. So now you're thinking, well, KO TKO is odds implied is minus 103 compared to the odds implied inside the distance was minus 104. You're going to take the KO TKO. Now, the odds on KO TKO is actually from plus 135 to plus 163. So that's even lower than inside the distance. And for me, there's some question marks here. Obviously, the bookies are lining inside the distance better than the KO TKO. So actually, you're going to take inside the distance now. Although, technically speaking, normally you would take KO TKO, but the bookies aren't stupid. I think the bookies have put a lower price on the KO TKO, hoping people take that over inside the distance due to them not having a look around and shopping odds maybe. I'm not too sure. But sometimes, every now and again, you had it with Ngannou before as well, with these real powerful heavyweights, the bookies are going to start really trying to mitigate their risk themselves. So they've dropped a lower price on KO TKO, which is surprising to some people, but they've done that just so there's no real risk on them losing a ton of money. Now, where the value can really come into play is Pavlovich KO TKO, specifically in round 1. Now the bookies can't start messing around with the odds and trying to deceive people by lowering odds when they should be wider for certain markets. KO TKO specifically in round 1 is 42%. Odds implied on 42% is plus 138. At the bookies, you'd have got plus 320 to plus 350. So if you actually were betting this fight, you would probably be looking at anywhere from Pavlovich money line, maybe inside the distance, or if you wanted to get riskier, go in specifically for round 1. And obviously all 4 came through: the win, the inside the distance, the KO TKO round 1. And that's why we are classifying it as a gem, because again, it's on an underdog. It's not as if Pavlovich was a minus 200 favourite and all came through. Pavlovich was an underdog, and the win inside the distance, method of victory, and the method of victory specifically in a specific round all came in. So another gem there as well. But again, just further advice, just look at the numbers, compare them to the bookies odds. Again, I'll say it, BetMMA.tips website has an odds conversion tool on there. You can put the percentage into there from Blaydes, and from that Blaydes percentage, it will tell you what the odds Blaydes AI is saying that specific market should be, and then you can go and compare it to the bookies. So a really good job last week. Hit 2 beautiful underdogs, a beautiful pick'em. It also had a solid Montel Jackson at 71%, even though there was no value there. But then it also had a couple of real good value spots on the predictions that Blaydes AI slightly picked against. So all in all, a great event. I'm looking forward to seeing what it delivers again next week at UFC Vegas 72. Obviously, this recap from Blaydes AI at UFC Vegas 71 last weekend has been a little bit longer than what they usually are, but I'm now starting to try and provide more insight into how to use Blaydes AI as a betting tool, opposed to just randomly, recapping the event and talking about some things. I really want to start trying to add value to people listening in. So yeah, until next week at UFC Vegas 72, I'm Newsome, and thank you for listening and tuning in.